Good evening, students. Good evening to all of you. Kavita, Aishwarya, Tulasi, Helen. So very good evening, students. Students, is the audio all fine? Just confirm once. Jyoti, audio is fine, students. Aishwarya, students, now we can proceed further now. Helen. Students, today we will be introducing the questions which would be based on the tax liability and what would be the statement that you are going to prepare for this particular computation of tax liability under the composition scheme. So that is again one last format of this chapter. So this chapter will get over. And you will yourself will realize the other questions, remaining question students becomes very, very mechanical now. So we have already have solved it. Ram, in the option table, stable volume option is not showing. So voice is low for me. How that is possible, students? Ram, just you can just you are watching from laptop or mobile phone. All the students, please do confirm once on the voice particular part. Laptop, Jyoti, Milind. I think Ram just check once primarily. Even Ashwara is saying that though there is the enabling option is not there, still the audio is fine. So maybe on the laptop side or through headphone, if you can just check out once, if it is possible. Milind, Milind is also watching in laptop. I mean, just there is no option primarily which is there as far as the volume is concerned, and the other students are also putting up the remark that the audio is fine primarily in this particular context. So I hope that in this context, students, This should be fine. All of you. Fine, friends. So let's start, students, now on this particular part. Fine, friends. So I hope that these are the settings which I could have done it in this context. And I assume that all the students are now fine with the audio and video particular part. There is no issues as such. So on that note, students, let's start with this one. Rupa. Fine, students. Now, in this particular context, students, we will now see our next particular question. I'm just check and confirm once if the audio is fine now at this stage. I've done some settings. If it is fine now at this particular point of time. Okay, perfect. So now, students, we will do first, students, question number 7. Again, it's a good question, students. Question number 7 first, and thereafter, students, we will then proceed with the 2 questions which are there in respect of the computation of the tax liability. Again, I'll give you the format for those 2 questions. I told you earlier that it is going to become mechanical. After some point of time, you would have yourself realized that it would be becoming mechanical, students. So let's begin with this particular part now, students. The next question, which is of question number 7. 5D, I'll give you the screenshot in your group. Those who have solved 5D as a homework, so the same solution would be given to you people in the group itself. Coming to question number 7 now, students. In this context, very good question, students, in this regard. Shubhlaxmi Foods is engaged in supplying restaurant service in Maharashtra. So what is the nature of service, students? It is the restaurant service, students, in Maharashtra. In the financial year 21-22, it had a turnover of rupees 140 lakhs from restaurant service. So this will become your previous financial year. You will come to know. How much is the amount? The amount, students, in this case is 140 lakhs from restaurant service. Further, it had earned the bank interest of rupees. Further, students, what they have done it? It has earned, students, the bank interest of 20 lakhs. Now you people tell me whether the bank interest, will it form part of your aggregate turnover for the purpose of determining the eligibility? Will it form part of the aggregate turnover for the purpose of determining the eligibility? I told you already. Service by way of extending deposit, loans and advances, in so far as the consideration is represented by interest or discount, that service will not be a part of aggregate turnover. That service also will not be a part of turnover of the state or union territory for the current financial year. that also will not be a part of turnover of the state or union territory in the preceding financial year for the purpose of determining the threshold limit of marginal service. In this context, so therefore, in this regard, students, this is the point that you should always be careful about it. So therefore, in this regard, students, there is an echo which is going on, I think. Now, after setting. Just a second, students. Fine, students, now. Now I think it is all good. So the short point, students, which I was telling you was that this interest income which is earned of rupees 20 lakhs, this interest income, students, which is earned of rupees 20 lakhs, this will not be a part of aggregate turnover. This will also not be a part of the turnover of the state or the union territory in the current financial year, which is required to calculate the tax liability. This will also be not a part of the turnover of the state or the union territory for the preceding financial year. So you can see for yourself, students, that this 20 lakhs will not be considered. So tell me, for the purpose of eligibility, when we have to decide the aggregate turnover of the preceding financial year, the aggregate turnover of the preceding financial year is 140 lakhs. The aggregate turnover of the preceding financial year is 140 lakh, students. So therefore, is he eligible for the composition scheme in the next financial year, which is financial year 22-23? And the answer is yes. He is definitely eligible for the composition scheme as far as the next financial year is concerned. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. You are required to advise Shubhlaxmi Foods whether it is eligible for composition scheme of subsection 1, 2 of string for financial year 22-23. I already concluded this point. Further assuming, now second part of question. Now this is part 2 of your question. What is part 2 of your question? Further assuming that in the financial year 22-23, its turnover is rupees 130 lakhs from the supply of restaurant service. So the current financial year turnover from restaurant service is 130 lakhs and 10 lakhs from supply of farm labor in Maharashtra. Now students, supply of farm labor, is it an exempt service? Supply of farm labor, please tell me, will it be considered as an exempt service? Supply of the farm labor, students, will that be considered as an exempt service? Consider, students, in this particular context, herein, in this regard, students, obviously the exemption topic, we have not yet done it. So let's not, in fact, now I'll not get into this particular part, but still, let's assume for the time being, those who are not aware of it, or let's not get into this particular other topic, cross topic, this thing. Let's assume for it, students, that this particular supply of farm labor is exempt for the time being, students. Now, if that is the case, students, supply of farm labor in Maharashtra is exempt. It's an exempt service. Okay, on that assumption, I'm just taking it forward by discussion. Now, please tell me, for the purpose of aggregate turnover, whether the exempt service, will that be a part of your aggregate turnover? Whether the exempt service, will that be a part of the aggregate turnover? Answer is yes, students. Except for one exempt service, which is that the service by way of extending deposit, loan and advance insofar as the consideration is represented by interest or discount. That is the only particular thing that you will not consider. Rest of the exempt service will be a part of it. Fine. Now, my second question. My second question to all of you students. Be careful. Second question. This is a restaurant service that he is doing it over here. Now, the restaurant service that he is doing it, he is registered as that. So, in that, be careful that composition rate will be applied on what? Only on the turnover of the state or the union territory of the current financial year, which is in the nature of taxable supply, or it will also include the exempt supply. For the restaurant service, the composition rate that would be applied, will it be applied only on the turnover of the state of the current financial year in respect of taxable supplies, or it will also be applied on the exempt supply when you have to compute the composition tax liability? In that particular context, when you have to compute the composition tax liability, then the composition rate, will it be applied on both the taxable supply as well as the exempt supply, or it will be applied only on the taxable supply? For the restaurant service, I'm talking about it. Students, you have the table in front of you. You have the table, students. In the concept lecture, I have already given you this table. Jyoti, in that particular concept topic, students, what was that particular note which you all are aware of it in this regard? Kavita, Rupa, be careful. Restaurant service, students, as far as the restaurant service is concerned, 5% is rate 2.5 plus 2.5. On what you're going to apply? Taxable turnover, taxable supply, plus the exempt supply. This was there in your concept lecture, the first class, primarily, of the composition scheme. So therefore, it would be on both the taxable supply as well as the exempt supply. So on the assumption, now I'm just making an assumption that the supply of farm labor is exempt. So whether the composition rate, will it be applied on this exempt supply as well? Answer is yes. Answer is yes. It is only in the case of the third category of scheme number 1 under 10.1 and 10.2. Only in the third category. What is the third category? The traders. Only for the trader, students, I have told you that the composition rate of 1% should be applied only on the taxable supplies. The composition rate of 1% will be applied only on the taxable supply. That is only for the third category in scheme number 1 of 10.1 and 10.2. Rest, all the other two cases, that is for the manufacturer, that is for the restaurant service, in all the other cases, the composition rate would be applied for both the taxable as well as the exempt supplies. Fine. But if they tell you that the exempt supply consists of the service by way of extending deposit, loan and advance in so far as the consideration is represented by interest or discount, then in that particular case, whether you will also apply the composition rate on that particular service? Answer is no. Only that exempt service has to be eliminated. Rest of the exempt service for the first two category, rest of the exempt service for the first two category, which is the first two category, manufacturer and the restaurant service, all the exempt services will be considered on which the composition rate would be applied. But if you happen to be a trader, in the case of a trader, students, the composition rate would be applied only on the taxable supplies. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Every one of you. That exactly is the point, students. That exactly is the point. So this is what it is in this regard. And now therefore coming back to this particular question in this context, please come back to this question students now. All of you. Now the turnover in the current financial year is 130 lakhs. You will also consider this 10 lakhs. So now the total turnover or the turnover of the state for the current financial year for the restaurant service would be 140 lakhs. There is one more turnover which they have given to you. What is that? It has also earned bank interest of 30 lakhs from the fixed deposit. Exclude. Exclude students. Explanation number 2 to section 10. This particular consideration will not be a part of your supply or the turnover. And therefore, 30 lakhs will not be a part of your turnover in this case. And on that basis, students, compute the tax payable by Shubhlaxmi Food in financial year 22-23. Now, students, this is a two-layer question of Shubhlaxmi. What is a two-layer question? Question number 1, whether Shubhlaxmi is eligible for composition scheme in financial year 22-23. That is question number 1. And second is about to compute the tax in this context. Do you all agree to this one, friends? That exactly the point, friends. So let's begin with this one, friends. Are you all ready? So here, students, I will prepare two statements. One statement for the purpose of eligibility and the second statement, students, in this regard. The second particular point in this regard, students, would be what? Would be for the computation of tax liability. Okay. So therefore, students, question number 7. Get started. The format is the game, students. You all are aware how format is important. Now, Shubhlaxmi, in this context, now is she a registered person? Yes, she is a registered person. What is her business in the current financial year? I told you that you have to focus on the business in the current financial year. And that is about, if you see the business, students, the business is of the restaurant service. Plus, there is one more thing. Service of supplying of farm labor. Service of supply of farm labor. That is the point. Service of supply of farm labor. That is what you are going to write. This statement, I told you, on the basis of the current financial year only, you have to write what it may so happen in the last financial year or the preceding financial year. It may have only one business, but in the current financial year, it may have got more than one business. So whatever is there in the current financial year, you are going to add that. Now, some students are saying, sir, what about that service by way of extending that deposit loan and advance? Should we also write that also? No, not required. Why? Because any case that is excluded completely from the entire scheme. So because it is excluded completely from the entire scheme, I need not write that particular thing over here. Okay, that is what it is. Come to the eligibility part, students. Eligibility condition. Now, eligibility condition, students, which section you are going to test? Scheme 1 or scheme 2? Obviously, scheme 1, restaurant service, is a game over here. And this service of supply of farm labor, I will test this service as a marginal service. Students. So therefore, I am going to check the eligibility condition under section 10(1) and 10(2) of the CGST Act. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Now, what are the three columns that you prepare, students? When you have to make the statement for eligibility, you make for students the three columns. Which are the three columns? You all are aware of it. Eligibility, conditions, and remark. Indeed. Now, students, be careful in this regard. Eligibility. Now, the question that they have asked, there is only two questions. Did you read the question carefully? There are only two questions in this. Which are the two questions in this? One, is he eligible for the composition scheme for financial year 22-23? That is question number one. And second is, compute the tax as per the composition scheme. That is the two questions. Did they ask you in this question, will he continue to be eligible for composition scheme? Did they told you this? Will he continue to be eligible for the composition scheme in financial year 22-23? The way it was given in Rajbir and Son question? Will you do that? And the answer is no. You are definitely not going to touch upon to that particular aspect. So therefore, the eligibility condition that you're going to test would only be of the previous financial year. Would be only of the previous financial year. And once you have tested the eligibility condition of the previous financial year, you will have to conclude whether Shubhlaxmi is eligible for the composition scheme for financial year 22-23. That is what you are supposed to do. That is it, full stop. Don't extend beyond from this. Now, you don't go in the current year, also you check the eligibility. That is not the question. Unlike in the case of Rajbir, wherein there was a necessity to stretch the eligibility condition in the current financial year also. Why we have to stretch the eligibility condition to the current financial year also? Because the nature of question was whether he will continue to enjoy the composition scheme in financial year 22-23. So therefore, we looked into what was the turnover in that financial year 22-23, which is the current financial year, and we came to know that it was only 130 lakhs in that question, and therefore we concluded that yes, because the turnover has not crossed the threshold of 150 lakhs, therefore he will continue to enjoy the benefit of composition scheme for financial year 22-23. Continue. Plus we add some more items of conditions like no interstate supply. He should not be doing that. The non-taxable supply, e-commerce, through e-commerce, etc. But that is only depending upon the marks which the question will carry. Is that point clear to all of you? Do you know now the difference in which what I'm writing it, what you have to write in the examination? So link to the previous financial year. Previous financial year. And that is previous financial year is 21-22. Aggregate turnover up to rupees 150 lakhs. Okay. So this is for the restaurant service students. This is for what? I told you, no, always write this one for restaurant service, which you are doing in the current year. Okay. Now the remark column, students, which you are going to put across would be this in this regard. Now here, students, comes aggregate turnover, students, explanation number 1 to section 10. This is for aggregate turnover. What is the citation I gave you? Explanation 1. For turnover of the state, in the current financial year, for that the citation given to you was explanation 2 to section 10. And for marginal service, for the purpose of determining the threshold limit of 10% to be applied on what? Turnover of the state in the preceding financial year. For that, the citation which I gave you was second proviso to section 10.1. Second proviso to section 10.1, students. Didn't I give you that citation? That was the point, students. So in the remark column, much better if you can just put that citation, because here we are focusing on that aggregate turnover. And why is it so? Because in this question, they have given you the interest also of the last financial year, which as per explanation 1 shall not be a part of your aggregate turnover. Which as per explanation number 1 shall not be a part of your aggregate turnover. Is that point clear to all of you? Please write over here. Although exempt services are included in determining the aggregate turnover comma, the service by way of, the service by way of extending, by service by way of extending what? DLA, deposit, loans and advances, insofar as the consideration is represented by interest shall not be taken into account. Shall not be taken into account. So if that is the case, students, what is the aggregate turnover? Therefore, aggregate turnover for previous financial year 21-22 is rupees 140 lakhs, and hence what? And hence it is eligible for the composition scheme under 10(1) and 10(2) for the financial year. Which financial year? 22-23. 22-23. Students, be careful. Yesterday we did that one question in question number 5. I think it was 5C, the last question that we did yesterday. Remember that last question? Last year he was doing, students, restaurant service. Current year he was doing architect service. Last year he was doing restaurant service. Current year he was doing architect service. So now you tell me, in that question, just a quick recap. The eligibility condition that I am going to test would be under 10(2)(a), that is 50 lakhs, or because last year he was doing the restaurant service, therefore the 75 lakhs turnover threshold is what we are going to test to decide the eligibility of composition scheme in the current financial year. Whether we will test the eligibility condition under 10(2)(a), or we will test the eligibility condition under 10(1) and 10(2), so that in the last year, because you were doing restaurant service and hence restaurant service, the threshold is 75 lakhs, that is what I'm going to test, or I'm going to test 50 lakhs. 50 lakhs. What you are doing in the current financial year, on that basis only, the eligibility condition of the previous financial year will have to be tested upon. Is that point clear to all of you? That is beautiful question today. And that is the reason why this statement which I am preparing holds so much of relevance. In this type of question, because there is a marginal service, students, also, there is a marginal service also. So what I'm going to do, I am going to, students, put across marginal service, students, in this context. Eligibility for marginal service. The way we did yesterday also, the same format. Marginal service, if at all there is a data for marginal service, that data has to be tested in this format. If there is a data of marginal service, then that data will be tested in the format, isn't it? That exactly is the game. So marginal service, students, over here, what is the condition? 10% of the turnover of the state of what? Previous financial year, or rupees 5 lakhs, whichever is higher. So this is my upper limit, students. This is the upper limit for the marginal service. And now on that basis, students, I'll just put up what, students, in this context? The second proviso if you remember that second proviso to section 10.1. For marginal service, second proviso to section 10.1, which you already have told me. And what is that? That interest will not be a part of this turnover of the state. So what are you going to write? Interest will not be considered. Will not be considered in the calculation of. In the calculation of what, students? Interest will not be considered in the calculation of turnover of the state. Turnover of the state in the previous financial year. In the previous financial year. That clear to all of you? So therefore, Shubhlaxmi is allowed to provide service up to rupees how much? Up to rupees 14 lakhs along with the restaurant service. Along with the restaurant service. Is that point clear to all of you? 14 lakhs is the limit, students. Just check the amount of supply of farm labor. The supply of farm labor, students. What is the amount of supply of farm labor? That amount which is there of supply of farm labor could not go beyond 14 lakhs. Could not go beyond 14 lakhs. So therefore, if you now see the question, students, how much is the supply of farm labor? It is only up to 10 lakhs. Be careful, 10 lakhs. So the game is on. Now come to this tax liability under the composition scheme. So the second question that was about the tax payable for the financial year 22-23. Be careful. So therefore, the tax payable. Now see the question, it is for the financial year in totality. Do you know why they are telling you financial year? Did you realize that? Now the next two questions which I am going to do, they will ask you for each quarter. The next two questions, students, which I am going to do with all of you, they will talk about each quarter. Why each quarter? And why in this question they are asking to calculate a tax liability for the entire financial year? Whereas in that question, which we are going to do now, they will ask you calculate the tax liability for each quarter. Reason being, without taking you to that next question, now I am asking you the question, what is the logic of asking in this question, Shubhlaxmi question, calculate the tax for the financial year 22-23 versus in the next two questions that we are going to do, which will ask you calculate the tax for each quarter. Reason being? Quickly, students, 10 seconds. You should be in a position to answer it. Quickly. Aishwarya. And the reason is very clear, students. You should have known about it. Indeed, the reason is very clear. In this particular case, in this particular question, your current year turnover of the state, the turnover of the state in the current year in this question is not exceeding 150 lakhs. So if it is not exceeding 150 lakhs, so for the entire financial year, calculate it. Why? Because you are only going to pay the tax as per the composition scheme. Whereas in the next two questions that we are going to enter, you will find what? That after a particular date, the turnover threshold is reached. And then in this case, up to that particular date, you will be under the composition to calculate tax as per the composition. After that particular date, you will be calculating the tax as per the normal scheme. The normal scheme, students. So therefore, in those questions, wherever they are asking you the liability quarter wise, always understand one thing, that the question will have a split up date, wherein up to this date, the composition tax liability would be calculated. After this date, because the turnover threshold has been reached in the current financial year. Therefore, after that date, all the further supply would be taxed normal under the normal rate, as per the normal rate. Is that point clear to all of you students? Every one of you? Now can you see how to read these questions and all? The tax payable of the tax payable for the period. So the statement that I'm going to prepare is tax payable for the period 22-23. Now, when you have to calculate tax payable for 22-23, you should always have students 3 column primarily. 4 column if it is quarter wise students, then I will have 1 column for quarter wise. Students, please pay attention. If it is quarter wise that you are supposed to calculate the liability, so for each quarter I am going to prepare the table. So therefore that will be 1 column extra. And if it is not the case, which is there in this question, because we have to standardize the solution, we cannot keep changing our format solution after solution. Then what is the use of it? But after solution, sir, your format is changing. So how am I going to standardize? But now you apply common sense. This is for the entire year, so I don't have to write the period. But if it is quarter wise, then we have to write that extra period for that particular quarter. So here, students, what we are going to do would be aggregate turnover in this context. Thereafter, students, turnover of the state. Turnover of the state, students, for the current financial year. Now, all these are current financial year data, so we don't write anything about that. Turnover of the state. Okay, and there are last one is a GST liability. Now, this is as per the composition scheme only, we know that. So, if you see this question, students, over here, the Shubhlaxmi question. So, over here, be careful. The current year data is this. The current year data is this. Now, aggregate turnover will not include 30 lakhs. Aggregate turnover will not include 30 lakhs. Turnover of the state also will not include 30 lakhs. Turnover of the state will also not include 30 lakhs. What about the supply of farm labor? Assuming it is an exempt service, aggregate turnover will include this particular exempt service. Turnover of the state, because Shubhlaxmi is doing restaurant service, therefore this exempt supply will also be a part of turnover of the state for the current financial year. So it will be part of the turnover of the state for the current financial year. Is that point clear to all of you? Everyone, that exactly is the game. And therefore the things will remain constant over here. This is 140 lakhs. 140 lakhs in this regard. Now, you can write, students, over here in this context. If you want to write, is he a registered or unregistered? I may say you can just skip this particular part. Don't write. Don't unnecessarily put it an embargo on this. So, students, now with that, you first calculate the tax liability. What is the tax liability, students, for restaurant service in this context? 5%. Please show 2.5% and 2.5%. Would be CGST. And then 2.5% of 1.5 lakhs SGST. So therefore, in that context, how much is the amount? Whatever be the amount, students. Fine, students. Perfect. Now, right over here, the composition rate is applied. Composition rate 35,000. Answer is 35,000. The composition rate is applied on the turnover of the state for the current financial year. Okay. In respect of restaurant service, The turnover shall include 3.5 lakhs, Kavita is saying. And now you people 3.5 or 35,000 rupees. In, res- in, in respect of restaurant service, the turnover shall include both taxable supply plus exempt supply, except, except what, students? Except the service by way of what? Extending deposit, loan, and advance, in so far as the consideration is represented by interest or discount. So this is as per what, students? This is as per what? Explanation number 2, section 10. That exactly is the game. Answer is over. Are you people clear with this one now? The format. So when you calculate a tax liability, students, when you calculate a tax liability in this context, be careful. And one more note, students, you can write. It is pertinent to note that the marginal service. What is the marginal service? Supply of farm labor. Pertinent to note that the marginal service in the bracket supply of farm labor is within the limit. Within the limit. How much is the marginal service that has been given? Within the limit calculated above. How much is the limit? 14 lakhs. How much is given to you in the question? 10 lakhs. So please do make a reference of this and please keep an eye on this. Why am I saying so? Because there could be a possibility that the marginal service is going beyond the limit. And you might forget this thing completely and you will make a silly mistakes in your solution. Is that point clear to all of you? Every one of you are clear with this proposition? That exactly is the point. So with this, we are done with this particular context, students. And now then, are you all ready for the next question? Please move on to the next question now, students. Every one of you. Come to question number 4. Now we are into the tax liability. Question number 4. Varun and Arun Associates started a partnership firm. This is a study material question also. It is asked in last year paper also. So it's a very good question. Varun and Arun Associate started a partnership firm of architect in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh on 1st April of current financial year. So last year, students, the turnover is aggregate turnover is 0 in this context. And students, partnership firm of architect. So the composition scheme will be under 10.1, 10.2 or it will be under 10.2A. Definitely this would be under 10.2A, students. In this context. That exactly is the point. So in Bhopal, on 1st April of the current financial year, the firm provides architectural services in Madhya Pradesh only. It provided the following details of its turnover during the current financial year. It provided the following details of its turnover, students, during the current financial year. April to June is 20 lakhs. Fine. July to September 30. October to December it is 20 lakhs. Can you see that? Now you tell me one thing, what will happen, students? Please recall the concept class, the first lecture. I think 2 lectures before we did the concept class on composition scheme. The first 20 lakhs, students. The first 20 lakhs, because it is a beginning, na? 1st April is the beginning for this firm at first place. New firm. So the first 20 lakh students, which is there, will it, I am asking you very pertinent question. I want a pertinent answer. Will it be a part of your aggregate turnover or not? The first 20 lakhs, which has been given to you, will it be a part of your aggregate turnover to decide the eligibility in the current year? Will it be a part of? I just want yes and no answer. All of you. Again, I'm repeating the question. The first 20 lakhs from April to June, will it be a part of the aggregate turnover to decide the eligibility in the current year? To decide the eligibility in the current year. To that, students, indeed, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. It's all of you are saying. Indeed, for aggregate turnover, we have to see whether you are a big player or you are a small player. So we will give you the benefit of the composition scheme till the time you are small player. And small player means your turnover, your aggregate turnover should not go beyond 50 lakhs. And if your aggregate turnover, students, has gone beyond 50 lakhs, under 10 to a, you are already a big player. Now you don't require our support. And when we talk about the aggregate turnover, we will take everything except what? That interest on DLA. That interest on DLA. Except that, we'll take everything. That exactly is the point. Question number 2 now. Whether this first 20 lakhs, will that be a part of the turnover of the state in the current financial year? Will that be a part of the turnover of the state in the current financial year? I'm talking about the first 20 lakhs. Your answer has to be in yes or no. Whether the first 20 lakhs, will that be a part of? Will that be a part of the turnover of the state in the current financial year? Your answer has to be yes, it will be a part of it, or no, it will not be a part of it. Yes or no. That is it. Don't complicate. Tulsi, Kripa, Aishwarya, Ram, Aveen, Kavita. Anyone else who want to join the party? So what did I ask you the question? The question was whether the 20 lakhs in April to June, which they have given it to you, will it be a part of the turnover of the state in the current financial year? So you people have said that yes, sir, it will be a part of the turnover of the state in the current financial year. Now, if you say yes, because the majority have said it yes, and I cannot break the heart of the majority, isn't it? So if you say yes, as per what you people have said, then I am obligated to calculate the tax on the first 20 lakhs, because the composition rate is applied on what? Composition rate is applied on what? Is applied on the turnover of the state in the current financial year. So the composition rate primarily, the composition rate in this case, which is 6%, as per what you people have said it, I will apply 6% on that first 20 lakhs. This is what you people said it, huh? All of you said it, yes. Sir, yes, it is turnover. It is the turnover of the state. So if it is the turnover of the state, then in that case, I am obligated then to apply 6% on that first 20 lakhs. Will I do it? No, that was the question itself. No? That is what I asked you. The first 20 lakhs that you are seeing for April to June, will it be a part of the turnover of the state for the current financial year. And you all people said it, yes. Every one of you, I think only Tulsi said it, no. Now, when I'm about to calculate the liability, you are saying, no, 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 wait, sir, wait, sir. You should not be calculating the liability. Please be careful, students. Understand the trick. I told you then, and I'm repeating this point again. The turnover of the state in the current financial year, this particular term, this particular phrase is being used for the purpose of determining the tax liability under the composition scheme. This phrase is used for the purpose of determining the tax liability under the composition scheme, and that is the reason why for the first 20 lakhs in respect of a new firm, first 20 lakhs, he is not liable for registration. He is not a taxable person. In the first 20 lakh students, he is not a taxable person. And because he is not a taxable person, how you are saying that, sir, apply the composition rate on the first 20 lakhs? He is not even a taxable person by then. So therefore, it will not be a part of this particular first 20 lakhs, will not be a part of what? The turnover of the state. Is that point clear to all of you? That exactly is the point. So therefore, nothing will be there in this context. Now, what about the next 30 lakhs? The next 30 lakhs. This next 30 lakhs, will it be a part of the turnover of the state in the current financial year? Will this be a part of the turnover of the state? And the answer is yes. So if that be the case, students, then your aggregate, then definitely the 6% composition rate, the 6% composition rate, which is 3% and 3%, will be applied on this 30 lakhs. I hope that all of you are clear with this one now. October to December students, 20 lakhs. October to December students, 20 lakhs. Now you tell me, students, on this the composition rate of 6%, will it be applied or not? On this 20 lakhs, the composition rate of 6%, will it be applied or not? 50 lakhs, remember? Kavita, quickly. Night time. And night time, it's 10:35. Half of them will be feeling a bit drowsy, isn't it? Be careful. What is your aggregate turnover? So eligibility under the composition scheme will have to be decided on the basis of the aggregate turnover. So are you still eligible under the composition scheme? That will be decided by aggregate turnover. So what is your aggregate turnover? 50 lakhs. That's it. What is your aggregate turnover, students? 50 lakhs. So now you are out of the composition scheme. So the eligibility is decided not by the turnover of the state. The turnover of the state is only for limited purpose of computing the tax liability under the composition scheme. But as far as the eligibility under the composition scheme, whether it is of the previous financial year or it is of the current financial year, that is decided by the aggregate turnover. And the aggregate turnover, you can see it is 50 lakhs already reached by end of September. And therefore now from September onwards, whatever you are going to pay will be paid as per the normal rates. You are no longer eligible under the composition scheme after September. Is that point clear to all of you? Now see the question. Determine the tax liability in this context. So there are two questions, students. Here, sorry, the firm has obtained the registration under section 22 with effect from 1st July and opts to pay the tax under the composition scheme, I already told you such new firm will be registered as a composition dealer. This we already done in the concept class, that such firm will always be considered as what? A composition dealer. That is what I told you in this context. Okay, now determine the tax liability of Varun and Arun associate for the quarter. Now see, the quarter is coming April to June. Why the quarter is coming? Why not financial year? Because you have crossed the threshold of 50 lakhs now. You have crossed the threshold of 50 lakhs. Is that point clear to all of you? So now students, this question is only about what? Calculating the tax liability. This question is only about what? Calculating the tax liability. What is the normal rate, students, by the way? Architectural service. Normal rate is CGST and SGST 9%. What is the composition rate? For all the services except for restaurant service, the composition rate under 10(2)(a) is 6%. 3%, 3%. 3%, 3%. Is that point clear to all of you? So what is the question? Accordingly, we will drop the answer. Let's drop the answer, students, in this regard. So students, please tell me, just the last question of Shubhlaxmi, you did the tax liability. Here also you are doing this one. Here also you are doing this. So only one particular column would be added in this question as compared to Shubhlaxmi, which is that column, the period, the quarter. That is what would be added. Is that clear to all of you? Now, every one of you are clear with the formatting part. All of you. Perfect. 4 columns. So over here, students, you will just put across Varun and company. So it is about only tax liability. Varun and company. So don't write the eligibility. Here, eligibility is not asked. Here only the tax liability. So you just have to be very specific. You don't have to drag it unnecessarily. So if what is the question? Don't write here eligibilities and all those stuff. If you want to write something about eligibility, you can just write in some note, separate note, that look, he is eligible as one liner towards footnote. But don't make a statement here. This is not a question of eligibility. This is a question about the tax liability. Everyone knows this is under the composition scheme. So Varun and company, students. Varun and company is a supplier. Supplier of what? Supplier of architect service. Architect service. That is what it is doing in the current financial year. Don't write the eligibility condition. Here simply write tax liability. Tax liability of Varun and Co. for the period under consideration. So I'm using one more column, students, over here, and that is one is the quarter. Another is aggregate turnover, turnover of the state for current financial year, and the last one for the GST liability and remark. Write like this. So remark, by putting this one, I can write the notes also. Okay. So first is the April to June. Aggregate turnover is how much? 20 lakhs. Aggregate turnover is 20 lakhs. Turnover of the state in the current financial year is nil. Is nil. GST liability, students, in this context. GST is 6% on. Students, as a presentation, they will ask you 3% and 3%. But here, at least for the first thing, you can write 6% because it is any case 0, no? Of turnover of the state. So therefore, it is nil. Okay. Now, in the remark conference, I'm just giving the citation. You are clever enough to put across this one. For aggregate turnover, students, in this context, aggregate turnover, you will refer explanation number 1 and the first 20 lakhs. Oh, how do you write first 20 lakhs? Let me ask you the statement, keep typing in your this thing. Type the answer. What is the phrase that you're going to write for that first 20 lakhs? You have to write something, na? For the first 20 lakhs. What the law says, this is what will distinguish your answer with all the other students. How do you write first 20 lakhs for a new firm? How do you write first 20 lakhs? I want all of you to type it right now. No, how do you write in the law form, in the legal language? That I already have made you write 2 or 3 times earlier in the concept class. How do you write in this context? Quickly, 10 seconds only are left. 10 seconds are only left. No, no, that is not the way to write. Quickly, students. Last. No, not that is not the way to write. Last 5 seconds only now left. Indeed, Amin. Amin has got it right. So, in the case of a new firm, so in the case of a new firm, first 20 lakhs, you don't write this. So, every financial year has having first 20 lakhs. A registered person who's already registered for a new financial year, he will have the first 20 lakhs also. But in that first 20 lakhs, you make him pay the GST for a registered person. For a registered person, up till all the question that we did, up till now, like Shubhlaxmi question also that we did, for every particular person in the new financial year, there is first 20 lakhs. Every person, registered person also, it is there. So, therefore, in this context, this is for a new firm. Students, this is for a new firm. If it is a new firm, then in that particular case, the turnover from 1st April till what? Till the supplier become liable for registration. That is the phrase. Krupa. In the case of the new firm, in the case of the new firm, students, in this context, in the case of new firm, the turnover from 1st April, from 1st April of the financial year till the supplier becomes liable for registration shall be included. This is for aggregate turnover. Okay, now see how smartly I'm writing it over here. Turnover of the state for CFY, explanation 2. However, to compute turnover of the state, explanation 2 should know, this is explanation 2 of the current financial year. The same turnover shall be ignored. And hence, how you conclude? There is no GST liability. There is no GST liability for this quarter. There is no GST liability for this quarter. Did you all got this one? Did you all got this one? Every one of you? Fine, students. Now coming to the next one. July to September, students. Aggregate turnover, students, is how much? Aggregate turnover is 50. Aggregate turnover, students, is 50. Means last and the current. And the turnover of the state, students, in this case, is how much? 30 lakhs. Now here, students, in so far as this particular part is concerned, what are you going to say? 3% of 30 lakhs will be CGST. Now you have to show like this, students. And 3% would be SGST. So they show both CGST and SGST separately. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, students, it is 20,000 each. Why? From October to December, aggregate turnover, students, is 70 lakhs. Turnover of the state, not applicable. This concept will not apply. Aggregate turnover will continue to apply. But now don't write this turnover of the state. That turnover of the state is limited only for composition scheme. Turnover of the state is limited only for the composition scheme, because on that turnover of the state, composition rate has to be applied. Is that point clear to all of you? Therefore, that is how it has to be considered. So therefore, since the aggregate turnover has reached the limit of rupees 50 lakhs by September end, therefore, for the quarter, for the third quarter, for the third and fourth quarter, right like this, for the third and fourth quarter, the tax will be paid as per the normal rates. Accordingly, GST liability, accordingly, GST liability for this quarter. What is the GST liability? CGST, SGST, 9% of 20 lakhs. SGST, 9% of 20. This, I suppose, it is 1.8 lakhs each. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Every one of you. That exactly is the point. Shall we go to the next question now, students? Shall we go to the next question? Rupa. Now for liability, do you know how to work it out? Can you compare the last question, Shubhlaxmi question liability solution versus Varun liability solution? Why this is quarter wise and why this is for the entire financial year? But anyway, in substance, the statement was the same. So my suggestion to all of you would be the last column, students, when you have to calculate a liability, the last column should be the GST and the remark. So if any theory have to be written, like we have to use explanation 1, explanation 2, so that theory could be accommodated. That theory could be accommodated. Come to question number 6 now, students. This is it. After that, the rest of the question are CPT questions, foundation level question. After this, the rest of the question will become CPT question, foundation level question. Let's have a look. B&D Company, a partnership firm in Nagpur, Maharashtra, is a wholesaler of a taxable product P and Q. Sorry, is wholesaler of taxable product P and product Q exempt by way of notification. So students, be careful. P is taxable, whereas Q is exempt. By the way, who is this person? Is he manufacturer, restaurant service, trader, or a service provider? Who is B&D and Company? Manufacturer, restaurant service, trader, or service provider? Quickly, by this sentence, you should be in a position to tell who is B&D and Company on this question. Tulsi, Ishwarya. Indeed, B&D Company, students, happens to be a trader. Now, again, I'm repeating this question. Now, since B&D and Company is a trader, in the aggregate turnover, whether the exempted turnover also will be considered to determine the eligibility? In the aggregate turnover, whether the exempted turnover will also be considered to determine the eligibility? Yes or no is what I'm expecting from you. I think it's time to say good night, students, at this particular point of time. I think time to say what? Good night to all of you, students. Or we might have to revise the time a bit early. In the aggregate turnover, whether the exempted turnover, will it be a part of the aggregate turnover or not? Go back to the statement. Go back to your notes, written notes, and see there, and then you come back. Don't expect everything that would be provided to you served hot on your dish. Go quickly. Got it? All of you. What is there in that case? While determining the aggregate turnover, what is excluded? While determining the aggregate turnover, student, then what is excluded is only the exempted service in the form of providing deposit, loan, and advance insofar as the consideration is represented by interest, only that is what is excluded. Rest already I have told you. When you talk about aggregate turnover, everything is included except for that one which is excluded. So what is excluded has been told you. They've already have told you what is excluded. Rest everything has been included. Didn't I told you just now very recently? Aggregate turnover is to decide whether you are small or big. So we will consider everything. We will consider everything in aggregate turnover in this context. And therefore, we will be considering everything. Exempted turnover also would be considered in this regard. Now, the second question which I have asked you was about the fact that B and D and company, they are the trader. And therefore, in computing the turnover of the state in the current financial year, turnover of the state in the current financial year, whether the exempted turnover will that be a part of the turnover of the state in the current financial year? Your answer has to be in yes or turnover of the state, turnover of the state in the current financial year. So whether the exempted turnover will that be a part of the turnover of the state in the current financial year in this particular context? So therefore, students, indeed, because he is a trader, the turnover of the state in the current financial year will not be a part of that turnover of the state in the current financial. But if he would have been a manufacturer, or if he would have been what? If he would have been the restaurant service provider, then, or maybe the last category, service provider, which is 10(2)(a). In those cases, both the taxable as well as exempted supply would form part of the turnover of the state in the current financial year. That is what we would have said it. Is that point clear to all of you, students? So here, when you have to compute the tax liability, this question is about computation of tax liability. So here, when you have to compute the tax liability at that particular point of time, what you will do? What are the columns that you prepare for computation of tax liability? You prepare turnover, the period. Second is the period. The second is the aggregate turnover. The third one is the turnover of the state for the current financial year. So now you will find a difference that though for the aggregate turnover, the exempted turnover will be considered, but when it comes to turnover of the state on which the composition rate will be applied, that will not include, because he is a trader, that will not include what? The exempted supply. The exempted supply. And that is, students, as per explanation number 2 to section 10. Explanation number 2 to section 10, which defines what is turnover of the state in this regard. So therefore, students, in this context, I think this is how the things should proceed in this question. Now, if you see further, all the procurements, both goods and services, of the firm are from the supplier registered under the regular scheme in the state of Maharashtra. So they are all registered supplier. The firm pays tax under the composition scheme. So obviously last year headache is not at all to be considered. Last year headache, because obviously we know that last year turnover is not exceeding 150 lakhs. And therefore in the current year he is eligible for composition scheme, and he has opted for composition scheme by virtue of this statement that he is paying the tax as per the composition scheme. B&D company has furnished the following details with respect to its turnover. B&D company has furnished the following details with respect to its turnover, exclusive of taxes. Be careful, friends. 30th of June, 30th of September. Tell me only for these two periods. Right now, calculate on till September end. Till September end. So September end. What is the aggregate turnover? in this context. And what is a what is a turnover, aggregate turnover? You should have the calci with you, students. This is a full-fledgedly a practical question. You should be in a position to get the answer. Calci is with you. So can I say therefore, as per what Tulsi is saying in this regard? $144.65 lakhs. 144.65 lakhs, students. Is that what we are going to say about it? And the answer is yes. Okay, that is what we are going to say. Okay, now you tell me one thing. For the for the quarter June, for the quarter ended in June, what is the turnover of the state for that particular quarter? For the quarter ended in June, what is the turnover of the state for that quarter? Quickly, students. I'm on for the quarter ended in June. What is the turnover of the state for that particular quarter? And it has to be, students, only with respect to P. Q is out of the race because he's a trader. And because Q is out of the race, you will not consider Q, you will only restrict it to P. For the quarter ended September, what is the turnover of the state? 50 lakhs. Rupa, it is 50 lakhs. For the quarter of the state, you will only take, because he's a trader in this case, you will only take up the taxable turnover. You will only take up what? The taxable turnover. Is that clear to all of you, students? So in the first case, by June end, it is 60 lakhs. In the second case, by September end, students, the turnover of the state would be 50 lakhs. Exempted turnover, because he's a trader, please don't consider it in the turnover of the state for that particular period. I hope that all of you are clear with this one now, students, every one of you. So now, obviously, based on the turnover, can you calculate the GST liability? Yes, you can. If he is a trader, students, the rate also you are aware of it. 1%, 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, 0.5 is the rate. CGST and SGST. That is what you're going to do it over here. Isn't it? 1%, but when you have to show the liability, please show it CGST separately and SGST separately. Otherwise, just for our quick conversation and reference, 1% is what we say, but when you have to, but please understand, the aggregate turnover is this much, students. The aggregate turnover is already 144.65 lakhs now. Are you realizing this danger now? So only few is left. Once you reach 150 of the aggregate turnover, composition scheme will stop in the current year. Let's see. Now see what they are doing. The extract of the only bill book maintained by the firm showed the following details. So what they are doing it, students? Now they are now going date wise. Why they have to go date wise? Because they know they are on the borderline now. They have come to the border and they cannot go to the Pakistan border. They cannot go to the Pakistan border. So they are taking one step at a time now. And now you have to keep checking at what point of time you are crossing 150 lakhs. At what point of time your aggregate turnover crosses that 150 lakhs. See for yourself in this regard. So as on 1st of October, students, if you see over here, 1st October, students, you already calculate 144.75. Then you do And aggregate turnover will include both P and Q. Aggregate turnover will include both P and Q. So therefore, I will take 144, whatever you have calculated above, 144, whatever 144.65 lakhs, and add to that 203 lakhs, which is the total of P and Q. Add further 138 250 lakhs, which is again the total for both P and Q. Add on 2nd October again 106 250. Tell me what is the turnover till 106 250? Aggregate turnover till 2nd October. Till 2nd October, students, please tell me how much is your aggregate turnover. Till 2nd October, I want. Till 2nd October, students, I want the total. Quickly, I don't have the calci. You people should have the calci. Till 2nd October, what is the aggregate turnover? I need the number. 149.125. 149.125, which means I just have some, how much? It is like 87,500. Only 87,500 is left now to cross 150 lakhs. Only 87,500 is left to cross 150 lakhs. Do you all agree? Now see what happens in 3rd October. In 3rd October, this date, what happens? On 3rd October, my turnover is 92,500 together. So now can I say on 3rd October I'm crossing it? 3rd October I'm crossing it, students. And if on 3rd October I'm crossing it, then 2nd October the composition has to stop. Everything has to stop on 2nd October now. Why? Because from 3rd October, students, because you're crossing already, by 2nd October, you will say, sir, but at least exhaust 150 lakhs. You don't do that. You don't exhaust 150 lakhs like that. Because you know you have to take ITC now. You will have to take ITC. And the ITC has to be taken a day before. Which means by end of 2nd October, you will now start calculating your ITC, primarily in this case. Because from 3rd October, that is a date when you are starting to pay your liability as per the normal scheme. And that is the reason why on 2nd October, students, because you will have to put a full stop on composition scheme, since you will have to now do the stock count on 2nd October. Why 2nd October? Because from the next day, your normal scheme will apply, your normal tax will apply. So therefore, you will have to now take the credit. Credit has to be taken for the stock, which is a day before. Which day before? The day before when you have started paying the tax as per the normal scheme. So 3rd October you start paying the tax as per normal scheme. So 2nd October you will calculate your what is the stock available on which you will now claim the ITC, proportionate ITC. Same is also with the capital goods. This concept we are going to learn in ITC topic, but a day before. So now, but you say, no, sir, we thought that we should do transaction by transaction, because if we do transaction by transaction, and sir, if we take 58,750, still we have got some limit left. Don't do that. That is not the concept. These concepts, we used to do it in the old VAT laws, not in the GST law. In the old VAT law, students, all these concepts were being used. Transaction to transaction. In the GST law, these things are not to be considered. So therefore, what happens over here, students? In this context, 2nd October, dead. That's it. From 3rd October, even that 58,750 turnover will be as per the normal scheme. Why? Because this is the day when you are crossing the threshold. Even if this amount of 58,750 is still within the limit, but still on this date you are crossing the limit. So therefore, all the supply on this date, which is the date 3rd October, will be subject to the normal rate of tax, the normal rate of GST. All the supply on 3rd of October. Is that point clear to all of you, students? And that exactly is the game. That exactly is the game, students. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. The 2nd October composition will end. That's it. Because 3rd October is a cake cutting date. Cake cutting date because you're crossing on 3rd October primarily. Now you say, sir, I was born. It is just something like this. Sir, I was born on 3rd October. 3rd October. And 3rd October, sir, I was born at evening 8 o'clock. So you people are saying when you got born? 3rd October at 8 o'clock. Okay. Now you tell me, do you celebrate your birthday every year on 3rd October at 8 o'clock? Or at 2nd October once the clock touches 12 midnight and it go to 3rd October, you start celebration. All the messages of your friends start coming in, isn't it? Do you say, no, no, please wait, don't wish me now? Still, I am yet to take birth in that year. Wait for 8 p.m. because that's my real date, time of my birth. In that case, you wait for that? No, that exactly happens over here also. You don't wait in that case that no, sir, on that turnover which will cross 150 lakhs, from that only I'm going to start paying the normal tax. This concept doesn't happen like this. 2nd October, the composition will end because on 3rd October is a date wherein your supply crosses 150 lakhs. So all the supply of 3rd October students will be subject to the tax as per the law. Is that point clear? Every one of you? That exactly the point, students. So if I have to, in fact, put across, so this is the observation, a quick observation for all of you in this regard. A quick observation to all of you students in this regard. Fine, students. Can we proceed further now? Every one of you are clear with this proposition? So all the remaining turnover, students, all the remaining turnover is all the turnover about what? Is all the turnover, students, about the normal now thing. From 3rd October till 9th October. Whatever they have given will go under normal scheme. So therefore, starting from 58,750 till 60,000, you will calculate tax as per the normal rates. Starting from 58,750 till 60,000, you will calculate a tax as per the normal rate. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. All of you are clear with this one. Perfect. Further, B and D company paid freight of 1,40,000 to GTA during the period of April to October. They are paying freight, students, April to October. Assume equal amount of freight is paid each month on 10th day of each month. See, they are paying when? 10th day of each month. Be careful, students. 10th day of each month they are making the payment. On 10th day of each month, not the following month, but of the each month. So, assuming that the goods for which freight is paid on 10th day of month, just hold on. Just read it again. Also assume, one more assumption, two assumption. Also assume that goods for which the freight is paid on 10th day of the month are transported between 11th to 20th of the month. Do you know what is therefore to be done here? So students, it is like this. I am paying you on 10th and my transportation will happen when, students? So all my freight I am paying on 10th. For the transportation which is going to happen from 11th to 20th, I am paying on 10th of every month for the transportation which is going to take place between 11th to 20th of that particular month. This is what I do. All the amounts are exclusive of tax, which wherever applicable in this context. Now, students, compute the GST liability ignoring the ITC of B&D for the period. Now, please be careful. GST liability for the period of April to October under the composition scheme. Under the composition scheme only, from April to October. Please understand, in October, was there a composition scheme? Yes, for October 1 and October 2. There was a composition scheme, students. October 1 and October 2, students, there was a composition scheme. And uh, under subsection 1 and subsection 2, showing calculation of each quarter separately, which means that we are not supposed to, students, which means that we are not supposed to show the tax computation as per the normal normal rate, as per the normal rate. So it will go only under the composition scheme, not as per the normal rate. Is that point clear to all of you, students? Every one of you? Now, on that note, students, if I have to just quickly calculate the tax liability, calculation of the tax liability, students, for under the composition scheme. Now, this question is very specific. No? Tax liability under the composition scheme. Under the composition scheme for the relevant period. For the relevant period. Calculation of tax liability under the composition scheme for the relevant period. Now, therefore, the quarter which is there, aggregate turnover of the state in this context, and the GST liability under composition scheme. Under composition scheme. GST liability under the composition scheme. Now, from April to June, now you already told me what is the aggregate turnover for April to June, students. You already told me na, in this question. April to June, that June end, students, the June end, the aggregate turnover is how much? For aggregate turnover, I'll also take the exempt turnover, students. For aggregate turnover, will I take the exempted turnover also? Answer is yes. So aggregate turnover 77 lakhs 65,000. That is my aggregate turnover. What is the turnover of the state? It is only 60 lakhs. What about for the next quarter? For the next quarter, students, my aggregate turnover, you already have told me, sir, it has reached 144.65 lakhs. My aggregate turnover has reached 144.65 lakhs. Or may I say, my aggregate turnover for the quarter is 67 lakhs, but in totality it has reached to 144.65 lakhs. For that quarter, the aggregate turnover is 67 lakhs, but in totality it has reached 144.65 lakhs, which you already have calculated. Now, what is the turnover of the state for this quarter on which the GST as per composition would be applicable? 50 lakhs. 50 lakhs, students. So, on that basis, students, on that basis, it is 77 lakh 65,000. This is turnover of the state, 60 lakhs. And now, the GST liability, students, would be, he's a trader, isn't it? He's a trader in this context. 60 lakhs into 0.5% plus 60 lakhs into 0.5%. Now, students, there is something about the reverse charge mechanism of GTA service, because he will also be liable to pay the composition tax under the GTA scheme. Plus, you just write over here, plus GTA liability. Just write like this. Don't calculate it, just write GTA liability. How much is that, students? I'm not calculating right now. Reverse charge, in any case, has not been done. So I am not calculating it, and don't want to. Our focus is on the composition. Plus, you write the GTA liability. Proportionate. Proportionate. Plus the GST liability, proportionate. How much is that proportionate? That I'll let you know later on. Okay. Now for July to September end, it was how much, students? 67 lakhs is what you told. 67 lakhs. Aggregate turnover. Now 67 lakhs is what it is. Plus you already have calculated a total of 144 something. Up to the total happens to be how much? 144.65. You can write in the bracket. Total that has happened up till here is 144.65. Turnover of the state for that quarter. Turnover of the state for that quarter is only 50 lakhs. GST liability 50 lakhs into 0.5%. Plus this is 50 lakhs, 0.5. Plus, students, be careful. GST liability proportionate. Here also there will be GST liability proportionate. Now over here now the composition liability, students, till 2nd October. This is where the composition liability will end. Till 2nd October. Now till 2nd October, students, you already have calculated it. Aggregate turnover, you people have already calculated total, which you said it earlier. So the total that you people have said it was 447,500. Total, students, 447,500. And if you remove the exempted part, if you remove the exempted, yeah, in totality, Tulsi, it is 149 for 125. Fine. And if you remove the exempted part, students, exempted part, in this case, it is 4,03,000. You remove the exempted part, no? So in that case, if I remove till 2nd October, so 1st October and 2nd October, if I only focus on this part, students, 1st October and 2nd October, sorry, 1st October and 2nd October, how much is the turnover of the state? 1st October and 2nd October. So 1st October 2 lakhs plus 136 plus 67,000. So it is 4 lakh 3,000 turnover of the state on which the tax as per the composition scheme would be applied. So therefore this is 4 lakh 3,000. Now in that situation, students, you will say what? 0.5%, 0.5% on this 4 lakh 3,000 plus 0.5% on this 4 lakh 3,000. Now be careful over here. My composition scheme, they have said under the composition scheme you have to calculate the liability. Here, in this case, no GTA liability would be paid during this period. Why no GTA would be paid during this period? Because the GTA is paid on 10th. That becomes a time of supply. The GTA, students, for the transportation which will happen from 11th to 20th every month. So therefore, till 2nd October, I'm exiting now. And the question is only calculate the tax liability that would be paid under the composition scheme. So while the composition scheme is going on, there is no GTA liability for the month of October. For the month of October, students. And that exactly is the point. And this is where the conclusion will end on this particular part. Now, just for the matter of the note, students, the 3rd October onwards, 3rd October onwards, and onwards. Aggregate turnover you don't write. Just on that last column, students, I'm giving you one note. 3rd October and onwards, the last column only, students, I'm giving you the note. And what is that note? That from on this day, the aggregate turnover has reached 150 lakhs or has crossed 150 lakhs on this day. Aggregate turnover has crossed 150 lakhs, thereby making the registered person liable for GST under liable for GST as per the normal rates, liable for GST as per the normal rates, and hence what, students? As per the normal rates And hence, all the supplies, underline the word all, the supplies from 3rd October, from 3rd of October till the end of the financial year, till the end of the financial year will be subject to GST at normal. So again, I'm repeating this point. On this date, aggregate turnover has crossed 150 lakhs, thereby making registered person liable for GST as per the normal rates, and hence all the supplies from 3rd October till the end of the financial year will be subject to GST at normal rates. At normal rates. Is that point clear to all of you students now? Everyone? This covers up your this one most. I have not changed the format. Did you realize that, students? Yes, in the remark column you could write, friends. One point, friends, that you can write in the remark column. GST and this last column is GST and remark. No? Please write why I am taking that. Remember that explanation number 2. Because he's a trader, no? So because he's a trader, students, exempted supplies are not to be considered. Exempted supply because he is a trader. Please do write that particular sentence in this case, in this regard. So therefore, in this context, that exempted supply for the, you can just write as a note herein, note up till here, for all the note in this context. For 50 lakhs, this thing. One common note for all, put a star mark. If it is a common note for everything, put a star mark and then write. Maybe you can write it at the start, maybe you can write at the end. What is that? Simple note, students. A star mark, and the note would be, in the case of trader, comma, exempted supply, ES, exempted supply will not form part of the turnover of the state for the current period on which the composition rate is applied. On which composition rate you can assure if you want, depending upon the marks also at the time availability, you can. In the case of trader, exempted supply will not form part of, because instead of repeating this thing again and again, I'm just putting one star mark and putting it over here. You do not write for every particular quarter the same particular note. Don't repeat the notes again and again. Instead, this could be a smart way to put up this observation. Okay. Is that point clear to all of you students now? In the case of trader, exempted supply will not form part of the turnover of the state for the current period on which the composition rate is applied. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Every one of you. Now, everything becomes a CPT level question. Everything else now becomes CPT level question. So this, if you want, you can do an oral practice also perfectly fine. You will have to only do the practice of these questions which we have done it. Rest of it you can now need not solve it. You can also write that what I was saying, that sir, can we write about it that he has to give the tax invoice from 3rd October? Yes. Till 2nd October it is bill of supply. That could be an additional note if you want to write, and in the form of a note form, but additional note. But just see, don't overdo. It should also, the marks, all these points about the ITC is eligible from 3rd, tax invoice, bill of supply, All that will also depend upon the marks that the question will carry. Don't overdo, because then you will not be in a position to complete your paper. So the question, students, for the homework, which you can now only read, that should be sufficient enough. Please take mark the homework question now. Question number 8. All are small question, students. Question number 8. Question number 9. Question number 10. 8, 9, 10. 8, 9, 10. Question number 12. 8, 9, 10, 12, 13. 8, 9, 10, 12, 13. 14. 14. Delete 15. 15 is repetitive. Delete 15. 15 is repeated. Then the next is 16. 16 is a good question, students. Please do it. You will be in a position to do it, but please do it. 16 is a good question. 16. That is it, students. That is it. Again, I am telling you, students, you need not solve it now. You only can read it and move on. And also, students, last question is 18. Last question is 18. Do these questions, students, so that you need not now solve it, but in your mind, prepare those statements. Okay, in this question, what is asked, and then what I have to prepare. At least write that. That okay, this question, this is asked, so I'll prepare this, and then tally it. Don't write everything in that context. At least on the rough, you should make, okay, this is a question, this is asked, so this is statement which I'm going to prepare. This is what I want all of you as a homework. This is a question, this is asked, so this is a statement which I'm going to prepare. This much you will write it in your notes, and then you keep on referring to this, and then write your solution. Solution means your solution through the calci. That much is sufficient. That much is sufficient. But please do it. You will enjoy now. Now the time has come really to enjoy the chapter. In this case, after doing this much of practice, now it's a time really to enjoy this chapter, and you can do it primarily. Hardly it will take you half an hour. You will finish it off everything. Okay, so deal with this one, students, in this context, and that exactly is the point. Kavita, the GST liability is on the reverse charge mechanism. So 5% would be the GST liability. I'm not touching upon the GST right now because the reverse charge will come into picture. 5% is this one. Yes, in the main solution you have to write. But how to calculate? For that, wait for the GST RCM and then fill it up at that stage. But GST has to be calculated because at that period you are supposed to pay the GST liability while you are under the composition scheme, and that GST liability you will have to pay under the reverse charge mechanism. Under the reverse charge mechanism. I hope that now every one of you are clear with this one. With that, students, we are through with this composition scheme completely. That exactly is the point, students. That exactly is the point. So therefore, finish it off. These questions which I've told you, what is that you're going to do? Just write next to the question, what is the format? Based on what is asked, what is the format that you're going to prepare? The format should always be there in your mind. Okay? And then work out the solution through calci. That is all of it. But please do that. Okay? Delete question number 15. It is repetitive, students. 15 has to be deleted. It's a repeat Rajveer question which you already done in the first class. That has been there. So see you then, students. The next class tomorrow. Till then, take care. And those who are yet to join, students, this particular batch, the link of this batch, you can just WhatsApp in the first number which has been given to you in the description box, and accordingly you will be you'll join the Telegram group wherein the link of the lectures and the notes of the lectures are being provided in that group. Therefore, through that you can all see this content. Fine, students. See you then, students, tomorrow.